Bruh.
Un moment du bruit.
Is he using Heelys? So, big statement, I kinda love JRPGs. Not really for the combat or the stats or the Heelys, but more so for the big fleshed out worlds. The large varieties in towns and landscapes, the crazy ass character designs, the music, and just overall the jaunty sense of adventure. To me, a good JRPG is about the journey and variety of which it brings. One time you might be in a spooky ghost town trying to lift a curse of mystery, the other might see you stealthing your way through enemy territory or escaping a prison cell, and another might catch you skipping jump ropes, cooking, or just exploring a dope-ass crazy creative location. It's all shit you don't really get anywhere else in quite the same way due to how the interactivity lets you engage in it. Although, saying that, some anime do kinda hit that vibe, don't they? For instance, I've never managed to watch more than the first 50 or so episodes back in high school, but One Piece certainly feels like JRPG the show in many ways, as does JoJo Part 3. Like, yeah, you aren't interacting with it in any real way, but both offer the same creative variety as the cast goes from locale to locale, ending up in all manner of situational situations. The spirit of adventure! And similarly, Dragon Ball also hits this vibe. The OG show, more so than Z and ZT, do it too, but even in the most battle-heavy moments, it's certainly still an element. Like, you know, in the background. Yeah, you got all of these amazing cities, towns, characters, races, and planets, but rather than focusing on any of it in Z, shit's relegated to picturesque pictures meant only to serve as backdrops for all of the endless, great, but repetitive battles. Also, not entirely unlike JRPGs sometimes, let's be real, but it's still by far and away the most disappointing aspect of Dragon Ball Z to me. I've personally always fucked with the parts in between major sagas. Goku and Piccolo driving cars, Gohan becoming a superhero, Goku's silly adventures at Snake Way, the cool mini-villains like the initial androids and their inventive as fuck designs, or OGDB characters like Tao Pai Pai returning as a mech man and all manner of other zany shit. And one thing, a dream if you will, that I've always had is to see that actually made into an RPG. There's those Game Boy games, the color one of which is kinda neat, but on the whole far too slow for its own good, and while I certainly have a fondness for the legacy of Goku titles, especially in terms of how they flesh out the cities and world just a smidge, just to the simple act of letting you explore shit, they aren't exactly masterpieces, but with the really broken, grindy, and overly simplistic combat. Gets better in 2 and 3 for sure, but they do have a bit of that licensed game funk about them regard. And finally, there's Attack of the Saiyans on the DS, which I haven't actually played, I'm ashamed to admit, but I did watch the homie Karen and his homies Grant and Lanny of Team 4-Star Gaming play through it ages ago, and man, goddamn, does it come close to what I want.
Attack of the Saiyans.
It has the staple, otherwise forgotten locations and characters like Tien Town or Ox King's Castle or the folks living at the foot of Korin Tower, and it makes dungeons out of all the interesting landscapes. It lets you chill in the super interesting cities with the wacky varied NPCs, and the gameplay, while maybe still a bit too grindy, is actually pretty fucking powerful. So why ain't it perfect then? Well, secretly, I kinda just want a game like this, but with real graphics. Ever since I saw that Budokai recreating scenes in lovingly made 3D detail, or the third one with the whole open maps for one to dick around in, I've had a yearning in my loins for a proper full-on console action RPG set in the DBZ universe. Come on man, just let me ride cars with Piccolo and go thieving in Dayton with Yamcha and Poir, shopping with Chi-Chi and Gohan, train with Tien in the snowy mountains. Gimme that advent. Oh my god. Oh my god! And I will always love you. Yeah, fucking love you, bitch. And I will always love you. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is a lower-budget video game made by the anime license lords and shadow company CyberConnect 2 that has the worst box art, no reason to be anything amazing, and yet it kicks off with the first chapter called Slice of Life. That's not what Dragon Ball Z games are about, silly fucking video game-ass bitch. They're about kind of flaccid but flashy fighting or grindy as fuck JRPGs. You're not supposed to just hang out, stupid. But that is what this game do. I mean, it took a good 2.5 hours for me just to get to the fight with Raditz, and that's where most DBZ games start. But here we get a lot of time to let the main cast breathe first. You get to see Raditz being bullied by Vegeta and Nappa, which is great and sets his aggro-ass bitch tier up a bit more whilst making the bully seem all the more intimidating. You catch Goku being an actual dad for once too, taking the boy out fishing, hanging out at home, flying on the janky-ass Bimbus, and helping Roshi find his porn as he walks into the table. Bro, hell yeah. Goku even builds up Piccolo to Gohan a little bit, buffing up his eventual stepdad-ass kidnapping in a subtle way, same way you find a small Froggo island way prior to finding Ginyu at the location where you later fight Ginyu. Or how you extensively hang around with some of the OG DB cast who finna give their life juice during the final fight against Boo, making that moment a more earned effort too. Shit just gets right to funneling those Dragon Balls really, to a degree I don't think any piece of Z media ever has outside of a few select filler episodes and movie intros. Like, you literally get to meet and hang out with characters Z doesn't ever acknowledge. Ex-tournament fighters and their hometowns, Ader, Baba, Yajirobe being more than a bean dispenser, the announcer, and even the Pilaf gang getting into all manner of mischief. And mainstays that do play a bigger part in Z, like Tien, Yamcha, or Chaozu getting their fair shake of time in the limelight, all because of the game's main structure. Despite what I assumed prior to playing, the game isn't actually open world. Instead, you have a world map with various big-dicking-ass districts, or maps, or sectors, or whatever you want to call them, all essentially functioning as mini open worlds on their own, boasting plenty of distractions, towns, shops, cities, NPCs, secret events, collectibles, explorables, and vehicles. And this alone takes a lot of the backdropness out of DBZ, as there's just so much shit going on now. So many animals flying and running about, cars driving by, windmills on the horizons, epic mountains and gaping canyons for you to fly over and through. It just doesn't feel as static, lifeless, or empty as its budget made me fear it to be. What's good about this anyway is that it adds a lot of scale and awareness to where and when your battles be. You aren't just fighting in contextless fields or deserts as they usually were in the show and other games. They have a place relative to other places that you just got to explore, so things will feel a bit more grounded. Makes that whole "we should take this fight elsewhere" mentality feel a bit more meaningful too. I mean, I don't want to hurt this little village, man. I just helped out some homies there and ate all of their food, so we better take care of that Raditz thing stat. Or, well, I mean, not that stat, as we did kind of just do all those things beforehand, but it adds urgency once the urgency returns. I think a big thing contributing to this too is how the world around you reacts to all of the various goings on going on around you. During set pre-Raditz dick around, for example, you catch Yajirobe parked up on a hill like, "Whoa, I just heard this massive explosion over there. You guys might want to check it out. I'm too scared to be going near that." Poir is also in a town nearby being equally anxious, as are the no-name NPCs who RPG townfolk directions to you or lament that the post-OG DB quiet may have come to an end with all the sudden commotion. It's all in character and charming, but it defo also helps with lifting the scale and importance of the fights that you'll be having here. Shit's not in a vacuum as much as it was in the other games, and echoes the often deeply interrupty and draggy inter-universal battle banter quite effectively and interactively, making the stakes meatier and the world stakier. Anyways, this all goes for the fallout taking place after battles too. Like Yajirobe post-Vegeta trying to get into a hospital just for the food. Or if you go to Yamcha's house around the same time, you'll find a lonely, locked-out, crying Poir. But later, you can peep Oolong cheering him up if he ain't too busy getting lost out into the wild at least. Basically, what I'm building up to here is that the game's strongest point is finding gameplay and character developmental qualities in the bits in between the big events the show and other games is obsessed with. Either through amplifying what was already there just through making it playable, or by making up and adding new shit entirely, or by combining both. I mean, there's additions that fit in very well, like Gohan befriending the Pilaf gang, cause, I mean, he wouldn't know who they are and he just keeps finding them while in trouble, so he might as well help out, right? Or similarly, Trunks buddying up with Ader while being all, "He's nice, but there's something off about this guy." Because, of course, you see, he too is an android. Or Poor quite literally filling in Yamcha's shoes trying to keep his life together while he dead. Bits like these will have their own little arcs in a sense that give a few more layers to our main cast, as in, despite how smart Gohan is, he still clearly possesses his dad's blindly ignorant kind-heartedness. Or that Trunks, post-traumatic hate boner aside, can still learn to love the Machine Man. And that Yamcha, chickies aside, may indeed be fucking his cat. Look at that pose. How lame. Town of wind and ruin, tales symph. What song this? Don't hit me with the ad. Just show me what song it was for reference so I can record. Oh, ooh, yeah, here we go. Hey. But yo, they even straight up made up whole OCs specifically for this shit. Like the wacky onboard chef of the Frieza Force gone rogue in his pursuit of ingredients. It's one of those neat things that ain't just a fun little Yakuza-esque side mission on its own, but also a cool bit of world building, being that, well, Frieza is Space Hitler, and he raids and explodes and enslaves entire planets, and so it makes sense that many folks under his wing wouldn't really want to be there per se. You do, of course, see a tiny little bit of that in the show, mainly with Vegeta or how Dodoria and Fab God Zarbon fear Frieza's shit, but it's still cool to see some actual desertion attempts like this one. It says a lot without saying a lot, I guess. Same way the game has literal whole fucking chapters based around stuff like this called intermissions. The filler made killer, boasting many a side quest, some grind, and free exploration without you getting deeply dragged about by the plot as much. And it's during these that you get the fully fleshed out don't even call them side quests involving, for example, Launch getting her ass back to Roshi and finding Tien and why she went missing and shit. Or a whole quest line about Gohan, Goku's, and Vegeta's tales mysteriously never growing back. Basically, all of the stuff that Toriyama likes to just ignore or forget about, like most of the characters in this very game.
Launch! It's been a while. Someone forget about you?
Canon or not, it actively does a better job connecting Z with its roots than Z ever did, and uses them to make many aspects of Z a little bit better. Besides, shit like going camping with Yajirobe during Gohan's stint in the wild, or wingmanning Yamcha on his many dates, and yes, playing as the Great Saiyaman, is all pretty fucking cute either way, and not stuff I'd ever thought I'd see made playable past the doomed realm of handheld games with poor sales. Now, if it sounds like I'm giving a lot away here, trust me, there's way more to it than what I'm bringing up. I'm only highlighting this because it shows how much could be derived from all of the for some reason derided filler. Games tend to thrive on all of the dumb bullshit films put montage or cut out, you see, as I mentioned back in my video on game movie adaptations. There, I said that too many traits that are relevant gameplay-wise and still contribute greatly to the overall experience otherwise wouldn't necessarily make for interesting viewing. What I didn't quite get into there, though, was the opposite inverse vice versa of that. I mean, the show might not like to focus on, like, well, most character development outside of fighting, really, as it is a show about fighting. But because gameplay can be derived from exactly those moments. Piccolo and Goku driving cars was only a quick cutaway gag for a training montage in the show, I believe, with a few scenes of G&G actually being father and son spliced throughout. But in Kakarot, said car shit became a full-on mechanic, with building, crafting, parts collecting, and Yakuza 5-ass key car combination shit. It's really neat, and actively adds to the themes of bondage that montage had by turning it into something proper. And in my opinion, better too. You get much more of a taste of their daily lives here. Vegeta arguing with Bulma, characters like Ox King always being out shopping for Chi-Chi cause Goku sure as shit ain't doing it, etc. Shit's pretty fucking great. Though, on the other hand, it may also leave a few things to be desired. It's clearly a very budgety game. Animations are stiff, controls aren't always super smooth, and most of the dialogue happens in static text box scenes that usually are voice acted, but honestly, I do feel that this is the way to go for something like this. I mean, I'm very strongly pro AA to begin with, but like, massive RPGs with big detail don't seem to work out too hot with AAA fidelity, and they never really did either, aside from like Final Fantasy X and 12, but even those sacrificed a fair bit. See, PS1 JRPGs often impressed with their FMVs, as otherwise their graphics just consisted out of static images with shitty looking models compared to the smaller games like RE2. And the SNES and NES RPGs weren't exactly lookers either for their time compared to your side-scrollers. They just had heaps of personality and artistic direction going for them. Square currently is really the only one trying to do JRPGs on AAA level, and given how Final Fantasy 15 turned out and that Final Fantasy 7 Remake is being chopped up into episodes, it probably isn't going all too well. So I'm pretty hecking certain that they couldn't have included nearly as much locations, characters, and events into Kakarot if they tried making it all high fidelity. I'd much rather have launch in Big City than just the main events, but prettier. However, it does also suffer from its lower budget. I mean, Snake Way and Hell would have been hella fun to play through as they were in Attack of the Legacy of the Goku Saiyans. The trip to Namek also could have seen the gang land on some other planets, and the B-team fighting those creepy-ass past Saiyans in the Popo Zone could have been a fun little battle. And the whole tournament bit pre-Boo gets rushed through by way of a slideshow and voiceover, and man, a fucking small little tournament thing would have been pretty neat. Like, you can't tell me that a JRPG isn't better with a Colosseum chapter, and somehow one based on a show once pretty much based solely around just that for a good while doesn't have one? Cocky pop is what that is. Also, what about the Garlic Jr. saga?
It's not in the manga.
Yeah, well, can it, stupid? You really gonna say that Zombie Piccolo would not have made this game better? Fuck up out of here, man. And hey, the Game Boy Color game at least had the audacity to let you fiddle around Boo's innards. Why is all we get here just a text box? Shit's ass. Not to look a gift horse up the ass though, honestly, I'm getting what I want here, and I also realize that modeling all of those locations would have been a lot of extra effort. It's just, I do think the game would have been better off, as shit's sadly a bit repetitive on the whole just due to its structure. Well, that and the loading times also kinda suck, and it could have done with more than like 5 songs used for all fucking cutscenes across the entire damn game. Like, it's certainly not a masterpiece, which wasn't what I was expecting, but some segments do really feel rushed, which stands out given the detail it lends to others. But that said, what I wanted was a game that could prove to me that the Dragon Ball world and its characters are worth being so much more than just a stage for some fights with commentary. And this game does that pretty fucking well. In some ways, lesser than the other RPGs, and in some cases, even the show itself, of course, but in quite a lot of ways, also far better than both. And, yeah, you know, the combat. It's basically a more RPG-y iteration of what we've seen in most Dragon Ball games since Tenkaichi 3, so very satisfying and beefy and fast as fuck, but also kind of shallow and a bit clusterfucky at times. And the velocity of the satisfaction also kind of depends on the context of the fight in question rather than how the fights play per se. But then, like, it does have this neat little social link system where your interactions with friends directly affect your stats, and that's pretty fucking perfect for a game this wholesome, even if it isn't necessarily always the most quickly rewarding to fuck around with due to the menus being really obtuse. Otherwise, story-wise, it follows the main plot, only not by way of a rushed collage of major events. It's actually quite a faithful retelling that sadly isn't always presented with enough flair to truly make it stand out on its own, but you know, I hadn't seen the show since it first aired, so it was fun to re-experience it in such a novel and adorably interactive way. So yeah, I got what I wanted. Peace!